Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight and welcome to our first public forum for the Wakefield Memorial High School project. We hope that this will be the first of many public communications and engagement opportunities for the high school project. Again, my name is Lynn Stapleton. I am part of the Left Field team. We are the town's project manager for the project, and we will be working closely with the town of Wakefield, Wakefield Public Schools, the Permanent Building Committee, and the School Building Committee on this project as we move forward. I have with me here tonight from the Left Field team, Shane Nolan, you'll hear from him, and Linda Laporta as well. You'll get to know both of them as we progress through this project. And also here tonight is Mr. Mayo, Mr. Lyons, and Mr. Bertrand. Joe will be providing the background for the school and will be up next in this presentation to tell you a little bit about the school. All these people have worked very hard to bring the high school project to where we are today. And before Joe gives you some background information on the project, if you have questions, please hold them to the end, write them in the chat, or raise your hand on the electronic hand raise. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to Joe.
Thank you. Thanks, Lynn. My name is Joe Bertrand. I'm the chairman of the Permanent Building Committee, and welcome to this public forum number one, as Lynn said, for the high school project. The Permanent Building Committee felt that it was important for the town to understand the proposed schedule, and as Lynn indicated, there will be other forums as well. As Lynn has identified himself with Left Field, just to give you a background, Left Field, some of the principals at Left Field were the owner's project manager for the Galvan Middle School, as well as the Left Field was the owner's project manager for the renovations to the Walton School, and also are currently working with the Permanent Building Committee on the public safety building. As indicated, the high school, Wakefield Memorial High School, was originally built as a junior high school in 1960, and in 1972, however, it was converted into the current building when they made additions to the north and south of the building. In 2016, the Permanent Building Committee was involved in a very comprehensive assessment and feasibility study done by Dorr and Whittier. And it was based upon that the school district was able to apply to the MSBA for this project. The assessment found that there were numerous building challenges, educational constraints, such as shown in the exterior had significant issues. The science rooms had numerous issues with them, and the HVAC mechanical also had problems. Those are just some of the examples. We can't go through all of them, of the many issues with the Wakefield Memorial High School.
Thank you, Joe. It's Shane Nolan here. Good evening, everybody. So we just wanted to go through a couple of slides about the MSBA. MSBA are somebody that you're going to quite frequently hear about. The MSBA is the Mass School Building Authority. The Mass School Building Authority are the state agency that partners with towns and school districts throughout the Commonwealth to partially fund these school projects. Their mission is to support the design and construction of educationally appropriate, flexible, sustainable, and cost-effective public school facilities. So that's important. They want to make sure that these schools are built right. They're built to their standards, and they're built to last between 35 and 50 years. They're an independent authority. All they do is school grant programs. Wakefield currently is in the core program to look at potential new school. They also have other programs such as accelerated repair project for roofs, windows, and boilers, and they also have a science program too. The program that Wakefield is in, it's a non-entitlement program. I'll talk a little bit in a minute about the statement of interest. Every year, MSBA opens up the statement of interest period where towns and districts throughout the Commonwealth can submit information as to why they think they should be admitted into the program. MSBA reviews all of those submissions, and out of that, they take the most needy and urgent schools and fund that up to their funding capacity. So I think there's about 60 to 70 schools submit every year, and maybe 10 to 14 get admitted to the program. So it's a non-entitlement. Just because you need a new school doesn't mean you're going to get into the MSBA program. They have to determine you're one of the most needy in the Commonwealth to come into the program. And then finally, if you do get in the program, you do need to comply with all the processes and standards. They have a rigorous process. They make districts go through. There's a number of submissions that you have to send into MSBA. They review those. We have regular meetings with them. We have regularly updates with them, and we'll have to follow all their requirements throughout the process. Wakefield's reimbursement rate is 49.94% of eligible project costs. We'll talk more about eligible project costs at another meeting, but we just wanted to put that out there. So Wakefield is eligible for almost 50% of eligible costs through the MSBA program. That does not mean that for every 10 million that we spend on this project, we'll get 5 million from MSBA, but that's something for another meeting. And just some more information on MSBA. They've been around since 2014. They've funded over $15 billion worth of school construction. So they fund about $1 billion a year. And in that time, they've participated in over 600 projects throughout Massachusetts, and it's benefited over 600,000 kids with improving the education facilities. So that MSBA process, the core program, there's 8 distinct modules, module 1 to 8. The first module is the eligibility period, which Wakefield has gone through. That eligibility period is complete now. We're currently in module 2, forming the team. The first task of forming the team was to go out and hire an owner's project manager, which is left field. We're going to go out and hire an architect next, and then we'll move into the actual design and construction and the review process and the feasibility and schematic. So these are the 8 distinct modules in the MSBA process. After funding a module 5, we'll go into detailed design, construction, and then building occupancy. So we're very early in the process. We're in module 2 of the 8 processes. So what's been done to date? Module 1 is complete, as I said. It started back in April 2019 when Wakefield submitted a statement of interest to the MSBA. MSBA reviewed that. They came out, they visited the school, they toured the school to see what condition the building was in. And through that, they determined that MSBA was in the condition where they would like to invite it into the core program. So in December of 2019, Wakefield was officially invited into the eligibility period with the MSBA. And with that, there was a number of tasks that the town and the school department had to do to actually get into the program. The first was execute an initial compliance certificate. That was just to say they understand the MSBA requirements and they're going to follow all the requirements. They then submitted an educational profile. This gave the MSBA information on how the district education works, the system, not just the high school, the elementary schools, the middle school, and the high school. The schools are also required to submit a maintenance and capital plan showing how the schools were maintained, how they were funded, and what they're going to do in the future to keep them maintained and in good shape. And finally, the school district collaborated with MSBA on a design enrollment. The design enrollment is the number of students that will design the school around. I think currently the enrollment is around 1,000, and MSBA and the school determined that 1,000 kids enrollment for the new high school in grades 9 to 12 would be would be appropriate for the feasibility study. So that was done. After that, the funding for this feasibility study was approved at the town meeting on November 7 of 2020. After that, that design enrollment was certified. December 16, 2020, Wakefield went to the board of directors of the MSBA, where they were formally invited to launch the feasibility study, and that was the end of phase one, module one. And coming out of that, Wakefield and the MSBA executed what's known as the feasibility study agreement. That's the agreement where MSBA will fund and reimburse the eligible project costs during the feasibility study. Early in the spring, in February, March, and April of this year, Wakefield went out to procure the services of an owner's project manager. And through that, in May, the town of Wakefield, together with Leftfield, went to visit the MSBA OPM review panel, where the town recommended and MSBA approved the appointment of Leftfield as your owner's project manager. So we're very happy to be on board. We've worked in the town before. Myself and Lynn are currently working on the public safety, and we look forward to working with you on this school project. With that, I'll hand it over to Lynn.
As Shane said, the MSBA's 8-step process, we're currently in module 2, and Leftfield was appointed as the owner's project manager. You'll hear a lot of acronyms throughout this presentation and in the future, and the owner's project manager is typically called the OPM. So that process is complete, and we're entering into the designer selection process. We expect this to be complete sometime in August, and maybe contracts negotiated in September. But the first step in that process is issuing a request for designer services, which we currently have developed that RFS, which is the request for designer services, and we have it in review with the MSBA. MSBA plays a very active role in the selection of the designer. They have what they call a designer selection panel, or DSP, and of that designer selection panel, they have 13 members that are appointed by the executive director of the MSBA, and it's composed of MSBA staff members, as well as individuals throughout the state with varying areas of expertise. The town of Wakefield will get 3 members to be part of the designer selection panel, and they will represent the town and the school district. It's a very in-depth process where the first step is to review the qualifications that come in, to check the references, and then we go to a meeting with the MSBA where we sit down and we review the qualifications that come in, and of the qualifications that come in, we select at least 3 to move forward into an interview phase. And from there, the 3 that are selected interview, and then there's a selection made immediately after the interviews by the designer selection panel. Both of these processes, both the review of qualifications and the interview process are public meetings, and anyone can attend. Next slide, please. After a designer is on board, we move into the next module, which is the feasibility study module. There's 2 parts to this module: the preliminary design program and the preferred schematic design. In the preliminary design program phase, which is often called the PDP, we take a look at the existing conditions of the existing high school and kind of notate that in depth so that we can determine whether or not this project is capable of being an addition renovation project, or whether it really needs to be a new construction project. Also part of the preliminary design program is the development of the educational plan and the actual space program for the new school. Once we have both of those developed, we start looking at various siting and building design options in a very high conceptual level. We develop as many options as make sense to kind of carry forward. And in the preferred schematic design phase, we evaluate those various options. We carry forward the most viable of those options and continue to further develop it until we can come to a decision on a preferred option. That preferred option gets presented to the MSBA in the preferred schematic design report. They have a facilities assessment subcommittee that thoroughly reviews that. We meet with them, and once they are in favor of the preferred option, they will recommend to the MSBA Board of Directors to approve the project. From that point, we proceed into schematic design. Module 4, schematic design. In this phase of the project, what we do is we take the preferred option and really fully vet it and do our due diligence in terms of trying to uncover all issues that would affect cost and schedule and scope of the project, so that we can, at the end of the schematic design, have a fully thought out project scope, budget, and schedule for the project. We will present that schematic design submission also to the MSBA. And I just want to say, throughout this whole project process, we meet regularly with the school building committee, the permanent building committee, the school district, to get approvals along the way. None of this is absent of a significant amount of input from the school department and the town to get to each phase of this project, and involvement with the community. But once we submit this schematic design, we're looking for board approval from the MSBA around October 2022. We enter the phase module 5 called funding the project. At this point, MSBA will have approved the project and will have agreed to their participation in terms of cost in the project. And from that point, it'll be turned over to the town to approve funding the project and moving forward. Next.
Hey, everybody. Just taking this a little bit further from what Lynn just went through with the different modules. This is just another way of sort of putting a more of a schedule on this, and sort of putting it in a little bit more linear way so that the community can better understand how this process works. So as Lynn mentioned, we go through what we refer to as the PDP, which is evaluating all the different sites, the costs, the schedules, and then that goes through the preferred schematic report into the MSBA. And this all then eventually gets to the MSBA Board of Directors for final approvals. So this is all in an effort to get to the bottom of what is the best preferred solution for everyone involved in this project, and coming to that conclusion and still getting the involvement of the MSBA. If you want to switch to the next slide, Shane. Once we go through the modules 6, 7, and 8, which are the later modules, which are actually where the actual construction happens, and also most importantly, also the project closeout. So just putting this into more of a schematic design timeline. So module 6, which is where all the design decisions are happening after the site has been approved, typically takes about 12 months. The construction of the actual building, whatever that may be, wherever that wherever it is and however it looks like. It's typically for this type of project about 24 to 30 months. After that, you have the moving into the school. The school opens, students and faculty are back in the school. And then there is a 12-month project closeout module. So as an OPM, we still stay very heavily involved throughout the whole process, even after the school is actually open for use. And this is sort of an overall schedule of the modules 2, 3, and all the way through 5 that we have just gone through, just to give a little bit more of a timeline. So there's obviously there's guidelines and timelines set by the MSBA for all these different modules. And there is an actual expiration of the feasibility study, and the statement of interest has dates on it. So we're very interested in keeping this on track so that we make sure that we meet all the deadlines. And MSBA have a set schedule of their meetings for all the different stages that we need to make sure that we get on the right meetings and follow along with those meetings, because they are preset, and some of them are once a month, some of them are twice a month, and some of them are even further apart. So it's going to be very important that we get the community and towns and everybody's involvement to continue through this process. But it's come a long way already, and we're only in module 2 so far.
Thank you, Linda. So just to wrap up the presentation, as Lynn said, there will be lots of meetings as we move forward, and lots of opportunities for public participation, as well as bringing the school, the town, and the building committees into this. You can check for schedules of meetings and events on the town website. It'll also be posted on the town's Facebook page. I would encourage people to go to the MSBA website. There's a lot of information there on all the schools that have been designed and constructed in the past, and they'll also update you on the Wakefield project there. And left field, one of our first tasks was to get a website up and running. So we are going to do that immediately, and we will post this presentation from tonight tomorrow, but we are in the process of bringing in a third party to get a website up and running, where you'll be able to check back, get meeting schedules, review documents, look at schedule, and follow the process. So with that, I think I'll hand it back to Ian and open up to questions.
Thank you, Shane. If you have any questions, please put them either in the chat or use the electronic hand to raise your hand, and we will unmute you or ask you to unmute, and you can then ask your question. We have one here. Nope. Okay, nothing yet. Yes, you guys did such a great job. Nobody has any questions. Yeah, I think, well, here we have one. Can you explain the different roles and responsibilities between the PBC and school building committee?
The
Okay, that, Joe.
Yeah, the permanent building committee, according to the town bylaw, we are a permanent building committee has the sole authority to enter into contracts and to oversee the project, any project that's over $100,000. This is obviously going to be that. So therefore, the permanent building committee has that. However, in accordance with the bylaw as well, and also with the requirements of the MSBA, we have an advisory committee, which will be part of the school, which is the school building committee. There are approximately 20 members of that advisory committee, and built and quote unquote building committee that will be working in conjunction with the permanent building committee, being heavily involved. As a matter of fact, probably next month to take a look at some of the designer proposals. They'll be starting to get active and then be very active when the designer, after the designer is selected, to go through the various questions that they will have.
The next question we have is, will this presentation be available after this meeting? The video will be available on WCAT's YouTube page as well as off of the town's website once Jennifer McDonald is able to put it up there. I don't know about the rest of your stuff. You can add more to that.
Yes, so we'll make this available on the project website. Right now, it's just a splash page and under construction, but we'll be able to post it there, and I'll also send it to town hall and get it posted on the building committee website through the town website.
Let's see. The next question says, didn't see the timeline go through all of the milestones. Did you have the tentative timeline for the last modules?
No, we don't have it yet. We obviously, there are a lot of variables in place here, not only just the schedule for the designer for the construction, also the MSBA schedule. The ultimate best case scenario, we're hopeful by 2026 to have it open, but and even earlier than that. But we really would be very hard for us to make a projection at this time. There are a lot of variables involved.
Leighton coming in and was wondering if the question had been answered. Is there anything that residents can do at this time to help with this project?
Well, as indicated, there's going to be numerous, hopefully more than Zoom meetings that the town will be having. There'll be community meetings very similar to the process that we went through in 2016. Once that designer has been selected and Wakefield and the designer and the permanent building committee and the school building committee will be involved in the community throughout this project. And hopefully the community will be involved.
We do a series of communications out to the public, and there'll be opportunities through surveys and more interactive forums as we go forward for the community to have their input.
Somebody is asking if you can elaborate on the eligible cost.
Go ahead.
So I'll take it, Lynn. So yeah, the MSBA sets the reimbursable rate on a project by project and town by town basis every year. Wakefield's is 49.94% of eligible costs. There are certain costs that are categorically ineligible through the MSBA process, and we'll go over them another time, but some of them are legal fees. Asbestos removal is another one. Those are never eligible in any MSBA project. Then there's caps on some of the costs, such as construction costs. Right now, the cap is $333 a square foot. MSBA will reimburse the 49.94% on $333 a square foot. If the building costs $400 a square foot to construct, that other $67 will be ineligible from MSBA, so that would be 100% on the town. Site work is also capped at 8% of the construction cost. So there's many things in there. Again, we haven't even started to look at the costs yet, so we haven't looked at what will actually be eligible and ineligible. It's something that we'll do in the future, but it'll certainly be a topic we talk a lot about as we go through the schematic or the feasibility and the schematic design.
Somebody is asking if you could talk a little more about the process of narrowing design options. In particular, when and how is the community engaged? You mentioned the rough timing, but could you say a little more about what that will look like, please?
Again, we'll have a public forum that communicates the various options that have made its way to being viable. And we'll share that with the public.
Somebody is saying, I think I heard that you are planning an enrollment of 1,000 students, which matches the current 2021 student body. What will happen if all the proposed development in town brings many more students? Have you been given the estimate number of new residents that the town could be adding in the near future?
I can answer that. We went with the, and Steve Mayo and Doug Lyons can assist me as well. We went through this with the MSBA regarding the number of students that they made a determination. And we actually disagreed with their initial number. And because of the future development that was going to occur, and we were able then get the MSBA to agree to a higher enrollment number. So that has been taken into account in accordance with MSBA.
Somebody is asking how the reimbursement is determined. I don't know if you've already answered that.
Yeah, it's with the eligible costs. It's as indicated that Shane went through.
And then one of the big questions on many people's mind is it our hope to renovate or construct anew?
That's what we're going to be looking at. That's exactly what the designer does. We look at all the we're going to be looking at all the options, including, we included in the request for services for the designer, what's even called a model school, so that all of the options will be looked at by the designer. So to say which one is preferred right now would be premature.
And somebody is asking what the over under is on the opening date.
There's so many variables there, I couldn't tell you. We as indicated, I think that by 2026, we should have an opening date. We hope to do it earlier, but we just don't know with all the variables involved, whether it's a renovation addition, new construction, and the schedule not only in construction, the schedule with MSBA and the contractor. There are a lot of variables. To give a date, to promise a date would be inappropriate for me to do so at this time.
Regardless of new or renovation, is there a thought that the students might need to be split between temporary facilities during the construction?
That's probably another factor that will be taken into account. It'll all be depend if it's, if there's portions of renovation, there may have to be some maneuvering, but that's to be determined.
How much is the Galvan experience will be taken into account?
Well, we're very lucky, I believe, to have the principals that were involved in the OPM, the owner's project manager at the Galvan, working with us again. Many members of the permanent building committee were members when we were able to complete the Galvan. So obviously that will be important to have that experience and having gone through the Galvan for the committee and as well for the town.
Have you been able to come up with any sustainability goals for the project yet?
Not yet, but it's very important for the community to have those sustainability goals. As a matter of fact, in the end of this month, there's a meeting with the MSBA that I'll be meeting with on a net zero projects. So that the sustainability is going to be an important factor no matter what regarding this particular project.
That will likely be one of our public forums as well to talk about the opportunities for net zero energy and other sustainability measures. And we'll be bringing that to the public to get their feedback on it.
Somebody is asking when you might know the next meeting is going to be.
I will think the next meeting would be as soon as we get the designer on board to introduce the designer to the public.
The Permanent Building Committee will continue to have meetings as well as the School Building Committee. As I indicated, we will probably be meeting next month once we get the designer proposals in. We, however, as indicated, we are not involved in the actual selection, but we are involved in reviewing the various proposals.
Does green buildings still increase the state reimbursement rate?
It did at the
Yes.
Galvan, right,
Yes,
Lynn?
yes,
Yes.
there's an extra 2% reimbursement available if we meet LEED silver, I believe it's the new V4 for schools.
It's now 20% over the energy code.
Our next one is, will the designers be taking air quality into consideration for students in attendance during construction and the immediate community?
Absolutely, yes. There'll be air quality requirements, whether it's new construction or renovation. If it's renovation, there is hazardous material in the building that will follow all the state guidelines on that. And there'll also be dust control and whatever other measures we need to do during construction for anything outside.
We'll also be looking at mechanical systems and trying to future-proof them for, future pandemics in terms of the number of air changes in the building, some of the issues that many schools have had to deal with in trying to reopen schools.
Is there an expectation that the designer will identify community engagement goals, or are there already goals established for engagement on the project?
There already are goals for the project for engagement. We want to try to get the community as involved as much as possible throughout the process. But certainly once the designer is on board, they will be an integral part of determining when those engagement opportunities will come along. I know first up will be the educational visioning sessions, which I know the school district went through in a limited basis some time ago when they were trying to determine what was the best thing to do for the high school. We'll go through a lot of those, build upon those previous educational visioning sessions, and those will all be open to the public, and we'll welcome public input.
Are we aware of any hazardous materials in the building now that will need to be considered in the cost?
Yeah, I've looked at the Door and Whittier study that was done in 2016. There was a hazardous materials report done as part of that study. So we'll be looking at that and updating it again as part of our feasibility study as soon as the designer is brought on board.
That appears to be it. As far as questions, I'd like to thank Left Field for assisting in this presentation tonight, and to Steve Mayo and to Doug Lyons as well. And as we indicated, we will be communicating with the community many times in the coming years to get this project completed. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.